Welcome back. You can join this conversation because Andy and I have been rattling away for 5 minutes while you were away. Andy Daykin works for Sheffield Wednesday's commercial department, having previously been commercial manager at Sheffield United, been in the business for approaching 35 years, including spells at Barnsley and at Hull as well. We're going to talk about some of the innovations you've been involved in your role at the two football clubs, but Hull begs a question, because that was quite a sticky wicket, to use a summer analogy, wasn't it?
It was. I'd left Sheffield United, and funny enough, I was going to go and work for SIV.
Sheffield,
yeah, Sheffield International Venues, yeah. And I was approached by your old boss,
Bill McDonald.
Bill McDonald. Would I consider it? And so
Bill McDonald, former managing director of Radio Hallam, lovely guy. I hope he's well.
Great gentleman, well. Yeah, great gentleman. And so I actually said yes, I'll go and work for Sheffield International Venues, and then I got a call off Richard Ibbotson. I don't know if you know.
Yes, I know Richard.
Yeah. Would I consider going to Hull? There's a few of us locally getting involved, and one very colourful character, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
And so the lure of going straight back into football just was too great, and I went to Hull.
And this was Stephen Hinchliffe, was the colourful character. And we won't go into all the details, but where did this end up?
Well, they did very well, because when I joined Hull City, they were 9 points clear at the bottom of the 4th Division, at the very bottom. Yeah. And so it looked like doom and gloom, as in relegation. They bought a couple of players in, did very well, and survived somehow that season. In fact, at the Easter game, we played Scarborough. I don't think Neil Warnock was there at the time. He might have been, but I don't think he was. No, he wasn't. He was at Bury. And we had a crowd of about 13,000 with a capacity of something like 8,000. And got into a lot of trouble for that. But I think the directors, of which I was one at that time, they felt that, well, this is easy. We just need to win a few games, and we get these bumper crowds, we'll bring in big money. And of course it wasn't like that. And so the following year they spent too much money, got themselves into financial difficulties, and the writing was on the wall, really. And I suppose it would be the end of the middle of the following season, they decided it was time that they had to put the club into administration.
Yeah, it was an unhappy time.
It was a very unhappy time, and every director ended up getting arrested. My arrest was something like probably 6 or 8 months afterwards, by which time I'd been to Barnsley and was back at Sheffield United. Yeah. But you know what the reason for it was, I'll never know. But it was very hard, because I was pretty well known in Sheffield. When I rang Martin Ross of HR Media, who was looking after Sheffield United at the time, and I said, "Look, Martin, I've got to be arrested by appointment, but nevertheless, I'm going to be arrested. I think this could hit the newspapers. You know, just need to be aware of it." And he said, "Oh no, don't worry. It's Donegate at the moment. That's all they're bothered about." And of course, the entire front page of the Star was my picture with a pint of beer in my hand, like I was having a good time. And your kids have to go to school the next day. Yeah. And you know, it's your dad's a thief, and he's stolen money from Sheffield United to take to Hull, or he's stolen money from Hull to, you know, whatever it is. And they made up all sorts of things. But in fact, when we went to the police station, the questions were about knowingly trading whilst insolvent, and the DTI weren't interested in the slightest. So a charge was never ever made, and I don't think that's a fair thing to do to people, to publicise it so greatly when you know you've done nothing wrong, you've never been charged with anything.
This has become an issue quite recently with public figures, hasn't it?
It's
the mud sticks.
Absolutely, the damage is done, no matter what. And I can remember having a rather serious argument with the then editor of the Star, Peter Charlton, at a social event at Baldwin's, and you know, nearly coming to blows and saying, well, you know, I hope that you will put it on the front page when it's known that there's no case to answer.
Did they?
Which they did. To his credit, they did.
The headline
they did
wasn't
do
as
that,
big.
but no.
No, the headline wasn't as big, but it was there.
Yeah.
But again, presumably, the information was leaked to the Star.
Absolutely.
From one can only guess, from the police, we imagine.
Well, I don't know. I can remember being at Barnsley with Dave Kilner, God bless him, and watching a game at Barnsley, and he said, you know, it's hit the news. I know about it, so you know it was going to get in the papers.
It died because enough people know you, and enough people know you're a good guy.
I hope so. Yeah,
plenty of people do. Now, apart from what's happened on the field, and obviously you'll have taken pleasure in a couple of promotions. I mean, Ian Porterfield got the club up 2 divisions when you first joined. Obviously, the Dave Bassett years as well, and you've enjoyed Sheffield Wednesday's recent revival.
Yes.
But what about things outside of the football in terms of your marketing roles that have given you the most satisfaction?
Oh gosh. Firstly, going back to the Dave Bassett's and the Ian Porterfields, I mean, that is what has kept me in football all these years, meeting such fantastic people in the game that you can actually develop a relationship with and call them a friend. And you know, I still speak to Harry, as we all call him, on a regular basis, and you do bump into people all over the place. So that's fabulous. In terms of the things I've done, probably in my earlier years at Bramall Lane, that gave me a great deal of satisfaction were things like the Bruce Springsteen concert, the Bomber Graham fight at Bramall Lane, putting on Mission England, having gosh, I've forgotten his name now.
Billy Graham.
Billy Graham, of course. And in fact, he gave Linda and I a signed Bible. We were just about to get married at the end of that. So that would be 1985. Right. But events like that, and you know, the chairman at that time, who was fantastic to me, brought me into the game and let me nourish in the business side of football. And
Reg Brealey.
Reg Brealey, yeah, he was
lovely guy. He
was a fantastic chap, much maligned at times, especially in his second period involved with the club. Very much maligned, but he once said, look, we're going to have to raise some money and come up with some ideas. Anyway, we launched this thing, and it was called the Blades Revival. I don't know if you remember.
I do remember it, yes.
But what we did, we put an article in the Star and the Green and saying, if you care about the future of Sheffield United, come to Top Rank on whatever night it was, I can't remember. But so Top Rank got filled like you've never seen, and there was over 3,000 people in there. Had the police and fire having to keep people out from outside. More
than for bingo, even.
Absolutely, and at the end of the day, this was just so I could say to everybody, all pay £2 a week to this scheme, and you'll help raise funds. And the chairman said, look, I'll keep the club going, but we need monies for new players. And we raised very quickly, and you know, I'm talking what, mid 80s, I suppose. I think Billy McCune was the manager at the time. Right. And we raised £120,000 and bought a striker whose name I also forget now. Gosh, can't remember his name.
Well, that seems to indicate...
He didn't do very well.
That seems to indicate the money didn't quite go to... That was a lot of money then as well,
It was a lot of money, yeah.
120,000. Yeah. He was a big striker from Leicester, wasn't he?
No, that's Alan Young.
Alan Young was
No, not him. No, he was a small... he was a black lad.
Alan Young was before that. Richard Cadet?
Richard Cadet. Richard Cadet, yeah, we bought. He never really...
Not quite, no.
Never really made it, so that was disappointing. Had he have gone on to do great things. But we also, I remember, we had Glyn Hodges, and we took Glyn Hodges on loan originally. And so we then did another scheme, which was, well, we want to sign Glyn, but we need to raise some money to do so. Right. And we ran what effectively was a raffle, sent out tickets to everybody all over the city saying, sell these tickets, and it raised about £80,000.
So this is the innovative side. You're not just working with companies wanting sponsorship. You're actually trying to create revenue for the football club. And you did that with that. The boxing match, I remember, all of these things were quite new in those days, weren't they?
Absolutely, yeah.
Pop concert, Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah.
That was fantastically attended. And I think if you listen out, you can still hear the echoes today from that.
I mean, that was a fabulous experience. And Harry Bassett had just started at Bramall Lane, that in probably the February of that year.
Yeah.
And I made one massive mistake, which was the pitch, and it got absolutely ruined. And the reason it got ruined is because when you open the gates and you've got 40,000 people coming, there were 44,000 2 nights running in Bramall Lane. And they all rush to the front. Once they get to the front, they're not going to move. No. So what they do, when they need to go to the loo, they don't move, they go on the spot.
Right.
So, of course, urine got into the grass and burnt it, killed it.
Is that what happened?
Killed it completely. Yeah. And I was then later talking to the secretary of Man City, who had put a few concerts on at Main Road, it was in those days, of course. And he said, oh, well, did you not know that you can put an antidote onto your grass beforehand that will stop that burning happening?
You can treat it and then invite people to.
Yeah. Thanks for telling me now, but the damage was done, and the council, in their wisdom, Don Valley was just being built, and they declared Bramall Lane a noise abatement zone. So that was the end of pop concerts, really.
That's a pity, isn't it?
Well, they clearly knew they wanted to put concerts on at Don Valley, and that was understandable, really. And it probably was a better venue. Yeah. For pop concerts.
You've never quite seen that at Hills, those kind of innovations at Hillsborough over the years. Although there was rugby league there. I remember Sheffield Eagles played there. I'm trying to think of other things, but they've used the ground for Jehovah's Witnesses conventions.
They did for many years, yeah.
And obviously the offices and suites. How has football changed in terms of the money side driving it? I mean, you've been involved in the money side, the revenue earning side all the way. Is that now more important in football than it was, and more important perhaps than it should be?
I think probably television is more important than it was. I mean, you'll remember in the 80s, there was a period with no televised football because the Football League, as it was in those days, couldn't agree terms with BBC, so there was no match of the day, absolutely nothing. And fortunately, videos had just come on board. Yeah. So VHS and Betamax videos were produced of every game. In fact, the guy, the lead singer of Def Leppard, Joe Elliott, I used to send a video out to him wherever he was in the world every week. Yeah. You know, and that was the way people kept in touch. But you know, cometh the Premier League, cometh Sky Television, and that's what's really changed the world, and that's where the serious money comes from now. You know, we're telling everybody it was 173 million pounds if you win that game at Wembley the other week. And that's because of television.
It is.
So
how much easier has it been to sell or become to sell Sheffield Wednesday to sponsors, backers, commercial partners, or whatever, as a result of what people have seen on the field?
In this last year, the success that we've had, I can't say it's been any easier because the pricing's been tight or expensive, shall we say. But so I don't think it's been any easier. People do want to see good football, and the previous year they clearly hadn't experienced good football in it. What did we win? 3 or 4 games at home almost, but it was scored hardly any goals.
Success was standing still, wasn't it?
Yeah, and Stuart Gray did a fabulous job with limited resources, and what a lovely guy he was as well. But you know, success is what people want to see, and they will pay. You know, it was abundantly clear when we played Arsenal in the League Cup, and it was a sellout.
pricing is such a delicate thing, isn't it? Just getting that right. And again, Mr. Shansiri, a quick learner, you know, whatever mistakes it seems to me that he's made, and he has made some, he's been very quick to correct or to tweak, or for instance the pricing, then people hit the roof over the match day prices. He's been quick to react, and towards the end of the season it seemed he discovered how to fill that stadium. 20 quid.
Well, yeah, that clearly helps. The games at the end of the season get bigger and bigger and bigger, and of course people's aspirations to attend those games grow. But it is a price sensitive business. There's no question about that. And just how far you can go with prices. You know, he's trying to bring as much revenue into the club as he possibly can. Because he's spending a lot. Because he's spending a considerable sum of money. But it's a tight line that you cross, really. So you've got to have good football to go for those top prices. He didn't know football, and he didn't know the city, and he's learned an awful lot in that first year. I'm sure. About both, I think. And has proved a quick learner. He has indeed, yeah. It's difficult when it's a different culture as well. And, you know, understanding that we have had a year of, not rubbish, but it wasn't a great season the previous year. Mediocrity. And this season's been a steady growth, actually. We didn't start off that well at the beginning of the season, but it has developed throughout the year and been a tremendous season. Yeah. Do you notice any difference between the nature of Blades and Owls temperamentally? Whether it's a myth or not, there is a theory that Wednesdayites have always got the glass half full and that Blades have got it half empty. Is there any truth in that? I mean, Wednesdayites have backed their team through some pretty bleak years and remained optimistic. With some justification, Unitedites have been driven to distraction. 6 years in League One is an awful long time. Yeah. So is there any intrinsic difference between the two, do you think? I've absolutely no idea on that from Alan, but you know, I think Sheffield United have done pretty well to maintain attendances in the 18 to 20,000 region after a lengthy spell in League One. You know, they were pipped by Sheffield Wednesday. What 3 years ago was it now? Yes. You know, that must have hurt. Yeah. But they've kept going, and I don't think there's any difference. We're Sheffield people, aren't we? Yeah. I don't see any difference between Chris United and. You don't see any difference between the nature of the two. No. A Blade is in charge of Sheffield United. Yeah. Chris Wilder, you'll know him well. I know Chris very, very well. In fact, I remember talking to him on John Street side of the old John Street, as was when he made his debut. I don't know how old he was, but probably only 17. He was a kid when he made his debut, and I remember talking to him after the game in what was the old director's room on John Street, and became friends. I like to think we're still friends. I saw him down at the League Managers Association awards dinner and had a chat with him there when he'd just joined Sheffield United. I think he'll be fabulous. Chris Wilder, by the way, is our guest, our special guest, in the studio next week. So, Blades fans, I said I owed you big time over the previous weeks with the Wednesday coverage. I like to repay my debts, and Chris will be here next week. Don't miss that. Two great stories to finish with. I know they're great stories. People watching may not have heard these. First of all, your single playing appearance, I believe, for Sheffield United was on a tour of Jersey. It was Jersey and Guernsey. Yeah, it happened perfect timing actually, because that would have been in '86, and we were preparing for the centenary of Sheffield United for '89, and producing a book. So I was able to get my name in that book as having been a player on the players list. But it was an official fixture, albeit that's the only reason you played. An international friendly. No, the reason I played, and the players probably wouldn't want to be mentioned, but we were in I think we were actually in Guernsey at the time, but as players will do on end of season tours, had a few drinks, and the cards had come out, and I think one or two had got a bit stroppy, and a brawl erupted, which meant 2 or 3 players ended up in hospital, would you believe? And so that gave me a chance, and Billy McEwan had just taken over as, I think he was actually acting manager. Yeah. He wasn't appointed manager. Right. Porterfield had gone, and Billy said to me, look, you can be on the bench, we're going to be short tomorrow.
That must have been a thrill.
And I'd trained with him. I'd have been 31 or 30.
You got on?
But he brought me on.
He didn't offer a contract?
Gave me a game for half an hour. I actually played centre-back with Paul Stancliffe, and John Burridge decided to come out with goal and go up front, and scored. Yeah. I think we won about 8-0. But it was fabulous. Yeah, it was a fabulous experience. Yeah.
You can say you played for Sheffield United.
I can indeed. Yeah.
Now a Wednesday story. They were searching. The situation is, it's just a few years ago now, searching for a shirt sponsor. Yeah. Gary Scotting is the businessman involved. Just cues you up.
Well, when I went and joined Sheffield Wednesday, Paul Aldridge had said to me, "Look, don't worry. At least we've got a shirt sponsor lined up." But the shirt sponsor fell through, and so we had to work very quickly to try and get a shirt sponsor organised for the coming season. And so I sort of thought, who do I know in Sheffield that is capable of doing this at short notice? And Gary Scotting, who then owned the Gilder Group and is still involved, but on a small scale because he sold out to JCT 600. But I said to Gary had said to me, look, if ever I do sponsorship, I'm going to do both clubs. Right. Because I don't want to upset anybody. I'm a Sheffield person. He is a Sheffield Wednesday fan, but didn't want to upset anybody. So I went to Gary and I went to Westfield Health to Graham Moore and said, look, what about doing something different and putting both of you on both shirts?
1 minute and 30 seconds.
Okay, I'll be very quick. So I said to Paul Aldridge, I've got Gary Scotting involved. Really, it's going to be good. This. No, we don't want Gary. He'd gone on the radio saying he was going to put a consortium together to buy the club. We don't want foreigners and southerners running this football club. Right. So to be very quick, I had to hurriedly organise a meeting at my house.
Because you've got a foreigner, Milan Mandaric, as chairman and owner,
and a southerner as vice chairman, and so I got Gary, Milan Mandaric, and Paul round to my house and let them fight it out, which lasted about 15 seconds, and they became great friends, and Gary did go on to sponsor the club, which was great.
People say these things, don't they? And then face to face, it's somewhat different.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And he said, well, it was a misinterpretation, blah blah blah, all those things. But yeah, and Gary's a great guy, and really bailed the club out when we needed support. It was fantastic.
And it's been absolute pleasure chatting to you. I owe you a debt as well, because when I started my freelance career in 1984, Andy helped me out. Among his many duties was editing and producing the Sheffield United programme, and I ended up with a column in that. So thank you for that, and for keeping in touch for all these years, and for all the memories and all the stories. It's been brilliant chatting. Andy Daykin, I'm sure you've enjoyed that. If you've missed it, it's a repeat at 11 p.m, or you can catch up with it on my YouTube channel. It's been downloaded on there. See you next week with Chris Wilder. Bye.